Welcome back to our Wednesday night Bible study, where we're looking at the life of Abraham and his wife Sarah. We are in Genesis chapter 16. We're ready to start a new chapter here. I call this one our seventh session, Running Ahead of God's Plan. And that'll make sense. What is God's plan is the first thing we have to remember. Remember, he has made promises to Abram, and the last time he made a covenant. God makes a covenant with Abram last time, like a contract, a legally binding formal expression of intent. It was the most binding of all covenants, the covenant of blood, formalized by passing through the divided halves of sacrificed animals. So Genesis chapter 15, verse 18 states the covenant. I brought it up here again. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, "To your descendants I give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates." So, as I said, first it was a promise, now it's a covenant. Abram's descendants would be a blessed nation. Well, this was great news for Abram and his wife Sarai, but how could this be possible? They're getting old, they don't have any children, all they can do is wait. We'll see in today's verses, this is where the impatience can be a problem, as I said last time, as a little hint. So let's read about what Abram and Sarai did when they got impatient. In Genesis chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my maidservant. Perhaps I can build a family through her." So what are the facts? Abram's in his mid-80s. He's not getting any younger. Abram and Sarai have been waiting 10 years since they arrived in Canaan, and God promised Abram a child. He didn't specifically, though, say that Sarai would be the mother. So I'm thinking Sarai's mental wheels are turning, and she's saying, "I'm old and barren. I have this young, fertile maidservant. Why not a surrogate mother?" Now, the custom wasn't against what Sarah was thinking. This wasn't all that unusual. Quoting from a scholar, in the legal custom of that day, a barren woman could give her maid to her husband as a wife, and the child born of that union was regarded as the first wife's child. If the husband said to the slave wife's son, "You are my son," then he was the adopted son and heir. So this fits right into the plan in Sarai's mind. So Sarai's suggestion was not objectionable according to the customs of that time. What does Abram think about it? Well, we see Abram agree to what Sarai said. So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian maidservant Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar, and she conceived. So you see what happened. Abram does agree, and he acts on it, and he is successful. So here comes the big question. Was he being disobedient to God? You could say not really. It's not like Adam and Eve eating from the apple where it was specifically told, "Do not eat from this tree." Were they being rebellious? I don't even think that they were being rebellious. They were just being a little bit hasty. They were using their human efforts to assist in the fulfilling of God's promise. And that complicated the matter. As we're going to see in the future, God's promise was not going to be fulfilled in this way. There's no indication that they asked for or got advice from God about this. They must not have, or God would have advised them against it, I believe. So Sarai's plan, with Abram's approval, turned sour. We see in verse 4. When she, Hagar, knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. That would be Sarai. An unplanned consequence, but human relationships are complicated, aren't they? It says Hagar looked down her nose at her mistress, her employer. Who does Sarai blame for this turn of events? Well, then Sarai said to Abram, you, Abram, are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my servant in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me. So who does Sarai blame? Abram, her husband. Abram's between the proverbial hard rock and a hard place, I think. What does he do? It says in verse 6, your servant is in your hands, Abram said. Do with her whatever you think best. Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. So here was Abram. He's under some serious pressure from the missus. So he blurts out another poor decision. You decide what to do. Hagar gets mistreated and runs away, as it says. I'm feeling a little sorry for Hagar, aren't you? The whole thing wasn't her idea. She was just being obedient. And it looks like Abram's goal is peace at any price, peace in the household. Apparently he doesn't want to interfere. He could have made arrangements to care for this woman and his child, but he does nothing, and they're gone. Here we have an unwed, pregnant woman on her own. Feeling sorry for her. Doesn't look good for Hagar. The only place she can go is out in the desert. So what happens? Verse 7. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? I'm running away from my mistress Sarai, she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, go back to your mistress and submit to her. The angel added, I will so increase your descendants that they will be too numerous to count. So the angel of the Lord found Hagar at a spring by a road. And notice it was the angel of the Lord. As in other parts of the Old Testament, it's believed by many, I think myself included, can't be sure, but believed by many that the angel is a pre-incarnate Jesus Christ. When you see in Old Testament scripture the angel of the Lord appears or says something, this could very well be Jesus Christ. The angel has compassion on her and tells her two things. He advises her to return home and submit to Sarai, which would require an attitude adjustment. Remember, Hagar was kind of being haughty about this whole thing, but it's best for her protection. And then he reveals her future. She will be the mother of many, many descendants. Okay, then we can move on. The angel then reveals the future of her unborn child. As he already said, I will so increase your descendants that they will be too numerous to count. So in verse 11, we get a little more. The angel of the Lord also said to her, you are now with child and you will have a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone and everyone's hand against him. And he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. So kind of a mixed good news, bad news there. Through the angel, God tells her the name of her son, Ishmael, which means God hears. His future doesn't look too peaceful, but he does at least have a future. What does Hagar do? Verse 13, she gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her, you are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. That is why the well was called Bir Lahai Roi. It is still there between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. Hagar has hope. God's love has touched her needs. She marks the occasion by naming the spring the well of the living one who sees me. That's what that Bir Lahai Roi. I can't pronounce it well. The well of the living one who sees me. Apparently she went back to Abram and submitted to Sarai and birthed Ishmael. And that ends that piece of Abram's story. It certainly shows some things about God caring about people, that he's interested in what's going on. He shows compassion there toward Hagar and Ishmael. And it also, to me, shows that when God has a plan, he's going to make sure it's fulfilled. But the question is Sarai's plan God's plan? It looks like things are working out. Abram's 86 years old, but he does finally have a son. Is this the path toward the promise and the covenant? We'll have to wait and find out next time. So you all take care, and may the Lord be with you.